And it's a breakfast with friends right here on CCFm. And as always, every Thursday morning, right about this time, we have the pleasure of having Mr. Nico Kleynhans with us. Good morning, Mr. Nico.
Good morning. I've got three figures I'm going to give you now, and I'm going to explain what those figures mean halfway through what I've got to say. The first figure is 45 million. The second figure is 26 million. And the third figure is 12 million. Now, when I was 6 years old, that was in 1958, our home did not have a telephone. At that stage, there was one provider of a telephone service in South Africa, and that was the post office. They had all kinds of rules and regulations of what had to be done before you could get a telephone. Our neighbor had a telephone. It was a black device. It didn't have a dial, but it had a crank on the side. And so you turned the crank, you picked up the receiver, and you waited for a voice. And the voice only spoke Afrikaans. Nommer asseblief, the voice would say. Then you would tell them what number you wanted. They would find the number and put you through. After 3 minutes, you would hear a grunt. And at that point, you knew your 3 minutes was up. You had to pay for another 3 minutes if you wanted to keep talking, or you had to disconnect the conversation immediately. It was also a good way in the villages for gossip to spread, because the telephonist listened in on these conversations. And we had a telephonist from the exchange live across the road. So within a day, we knew all the town gossip that happened. Well, eventually, they started replacing these hand telephones with automatic phones where you could now dial the number. And a cafe in Port Alfred decided they would like, as a service, put a public telephone outside their fish and chip shop. So they applied to the post office and said, can we have a public phone? And the post office said, of course you can, but there's going to be a problem because the town of Port Alfred is designated for the use of white people only. And if we put up a public phone there, you're going to have to make sure that that phone is only used by white people, because it's not our responsibility to take care of other people's phone needs in the town of Port Alfred. Well, they had to go to the newspapers, they had to organize all kinds of petitions before the post office eventually decided that the world would not end if somebody of color were to use a public phone outside a white fish and chip shop in the town of Port Alfred. So what is it that I have to try and say to you this morning? Is the state a good provider of economic growth? And is the state a good provider of economic services? Can we rely on the state? And my problem is, I don't believe the state is ever going to be a good provider, because the state rewards any kind of service, whether it is efficient or inefficient, it rewards it the same way. The state prefers to work in a monopolistic situation. They don't want to have competition. And I'm not saying the state started failing. I'm saying the state has always operated that way. And it didn't start that way in 1994. You go back to 1900 and you see the state has always operated in an inefficient way. It has always operated in a monopolistic environment. So what then gives me hope in South Africa? What gives me hope in South Africa is the people of South Africa. That's what gives me hope. And now we come back to the 45 million. You see, there are 45 million of us who could vote at any election. 26 million of us bothered to register for the last election, and 12 million bothered to actually vote. This weekend, we're going to be asked to register. Instead of griping about the state that is inefficient, instead of griping about the state that doesn't provide good service, how about we take responsibility and we make sure that our families and our friends go and register so that on election day, they make a difference. If 10% more people voted, that would make a massive difference. I don't care who you vote for. The mere fact that you are voting improves the democracy of our country. It improves the power that you have as a person. So what's that got to do with a financial planner? My problem that I have is that too many of us hope that one day when we get to retirement, that the state is going to protect us. It's not going to do that. It's not protecting the aged today. It's not going to protect the rest of us when we get to retirement. We need to get serious about financial planning because those planners know how to create multiple income streams. They know how to get us focused so that one day we're not those basket cases, that we're able to be financially viable because we took some kind of responsibility and recognized that the state ultimately is not going to provide the kind of living that's going to make us comfortable. Have a good day.
Mr. Nico Kleynhans, thank you so much.